to Bachelor Politics. I'm Scott Stearns.
This is Paul.
Hey, can you step outside if you're going to do that? We're trying to do a show here.
Oh, do we have to do another take?
Yeah. Can we do another take? Can we do it differently?
Yeah, well, what if I was your chief of staff? What would you say?
Same thing.
Okay, well, glad I'm not.
I'm pretty sure when George Stephanopoulos was interviewing Donald Trump, I think that was a sign or a signal that Mick Mulvaney was trying to send to Trump, like, don't talk about your taxes.
There you go. That might have been what it was.
I think it was.
So we're talking about the infamous the cough heard round the world.
Yeah, during the ABC interview.
Yes, President Trump got upset with his deputy Mick Mulvaney, who's probably done more for Trump than almost anybody he's had.
How many roles has he had in this White House? It seems like he's just bouncing around through different departments.
He also establishes a veneer of credibility.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good. I mean, he's very good on an interview. Kellyanne Conway was always good for a mind fuck.
Yeah.
And I mean, she'd be she'll try and turn shit into gold. And she does a pretty good job of it, honestly, by saying, well, the average voter doesn't care about that and all that. And she's pretty good at it, but it's kind of rote memory, some of the lines, and it gets old. And there's there's her husband, who looks kind of like Wayne Newton, honestly, always kind of questioning it. And then it's kind of interesting to see what's going on in the Conway household.
Talking about George.
Oh, yeah, George,
yeah.
who's a total neocon, by the way, who just hates Trump.
Yes.
Which has always led me to wonder if there's some sort of palace intrigue.
There's that, or it could just be a situation where they're just that kind of political household.
Except they're totally aligned ideologically. Ideologically, George Conway is as bad as Kellyanne is.
Yeah, on the issues, yes.
Right, which made me always think of some sort of palace intrigue coup, to try to get Pence in as president or something. But obviously with the Mueller exoneration, complete exoneration, no collusion,
no obstruction.
No obstruction. Which is no truth to it.
But Trump is a media guy, and he knows that what is on TV plays a lot more than what's in the written word.
He sure does.
Yeah.
So Trump kind of freaked out. Stephanopoulos called him out a little bit on it and said, well, that is your chief of staff.
Well, despite his coughing, he's not going anywhere. Unlike Sarah Sanders, who announced that she will be leaving this White House.
She did that a year ago, though, too.
At the end of the month. But, so she's on her way out, so we'll have a new spokesperson. I imagine Kellyanne will probably slot into that spot. She'll probably be doing the press conferences, the few and far between press conferences that we get out of this White House. So we have the debates coming up next week, Democratic debates.
Right.
They announced the players, and Elizabeth Warren is going to be on the first night, and then the second night is where kind of what you would consider more of the headliners, with your Biden, your Sanders, Harris, Buttigieg. I think those guys are all going the second night.
I wonder how they picked them. Was it just out of a hat, or?
I don't know the methodology, but for whatever reason, that's how it worked out. So not having Warren and Biden match up on the first night is probably going to work out in her favor.
Well, she maybe had a plan for that.
Yeah.
That's her phrase. I have a plan for that.
So I'll just go over what the nights look like. So night one, which is June 26th next week, night one features Bill de Blasio, Tim Ryan, Julian Castro, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, Beto O'Rourke, Amy Klobuchar, Tulsi Gabbard, Jay Inslee, and John Delaney. Night two is Marianne Williamson, John Hickenlooper, Andrew Yang, Pete Buttigieg, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand, Michael Bennett, and Eric Swalwell. So
my night two sounds a little more impressive.
It definitely is, but I would if I'm Cory Booker on that first night, and Elizabeth Warren is really the headliner.
Yeah,
try to make your name.
No, it's kind of a good thing for them. like as we say, well, maybe they're trying to get a brokered convention. Everybody keeps talking about that. I still discount it. I really think Super Tuesday is so powerful that it's going to have a real effect on things.
I still think that a lot of these candidates are going to bow out before the primaries even start, just because the money is going to dry up.
You've got that, and then you're going to have.
I look at like a Kirsten Gillibrand, and I mean that campaign just doesn't seem like it's going anywhere.
And you're going to have at most 10, probably more like 5 or really 3 credible people lasting until Super Tuesday.
Yeah,
and which is like a month in. It's still almost a month before Wisconsin votes. I think Super Tuesday is going to be one of the big things that sorts it out.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of history to be written, obviously. Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, so do you have any poll numbers we want to go over?
Biden continues to lead the Democratic field, and Warren.
Those are all fake polls, Paul. Like,
right.
according to the Trump campaign, which announced in Orlando today,
Biden's winning by a good deal.
Nope. According to the Trump campaign, they're going to win 3 additional states versus what they did last time. These are fake polls that were leaked, and 3 people were fired, I believe, from the polling end of things for the campaign.
Ruthlessness or lawlessness?
Or take your pick.
The scary thing that it says to me is that will he try to deny defeat, assuming we can defeat him?
Yeah.
I think the polls are fairly promising for the Democrats. One thing that I noticed was that Biden was the only one ahead by 10 points or more. However, I did look at the internal numbers in the Quinnipiac poll.
Okay.
The most recent, which is the most recent big one to come out.
Yes.
Among people who say they are paying a great deal of attention to the race, the other candidates, Warren and Sanders in particular, do just as well as Biden.
Okay.
And then Buttigieg as well, maybe even Booker. They all do about as well as Biden.
Interesting.
When you go to people paying only some, like, more casual attention, Biden actually is by far the best.
Yeah.
And the people paying more casual attention are
much
more lukewarm on the others. But that would show that those people have a lot of room for growth. And then when you go to people not paying much attention, that actually favors Sanders the most.
Again,
or people
name
who say they're not
though.
paying much attention.
Yeah.
That's interesting, too, because those are probably the most disaffected voters.
Yeah.
So Sanders and Warren, I think, were the biggest beneficiaries of those. Those might be the difference makers.
Yeah.
If you turn those people out, the people who say they're not paying that much attention, but they are attracted more, though, still to Warren and Sanders. So that makes the case for them.
Yeah.
And I'd like to get, look again at the numbers before I quote too much more on that. But I just thought it was interesting that there's a perception that Biden is by far the most competitive candidate, but not necessarily when you start to factor in interest into the election. There's a downside. There's a bad thing about these Quinnipiac polls, too, is that it's the Republican voters are paying far closer attention and appear far more motivated than either Democrats or independents. The only hope here is that they're taking a good enough sample size of Republicans now that they're capturing basically all of the formerly independents, which were actually conservatives who didn't want to say they were Republicans until they got inspired by Trump. But if it's a sign of enthusiasm, we may be in for a little bit more trouble electorally than we thought.
We have to operate under the idea that next year, despite these poll numbers, which look optimistic, we have to operate under the idea that it's not going to be that much of a gap come election day next year. We have to think about, and I think this comes down to a few states, we have to look at Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan.
Right.
Wisconsin, funny enough, is, at least in media circles, is now considered like the new Ohio. Like it used to be like so goes Ohio, so goes the nation. There's a lot of attention being paid to Wisconsin. So it's a lot of pressure, speaking as Wisconsinites. And obviously the DNC is here next year, and that playing out smoothly. It's interesting kind of being at the center of the universe politically, but there's also a lot of stress, I think, that goes along with that because we want to make sure things swing the right way in this state, both in terms of the convention and in terms of what happens on Election Day.
I think it's fair to say that if we can't win Wisconsin pretty convincingly,
that's not a good sign.
We're looking at 4 more years of Trump.
Yeah.
You know, Republicans used to say this cynically because they would always accuse us of vote fraud, but in this day and age, I think you actually are going to need to win Wisconsin by more than
Evers' numbers.
Winning 50% plus 1, so to speak, won't be good enough because they'll challenge it and they'll hold it up.
Yeah.
Like winning it barely will allow them to cast suspicion over it. We're going to have to win it substantially in order to assure ourselves.
Well,
and I also think that if you can't win Wisconsin substantially, it's not very likely that you're going to be winning Michigan or Pennsylvania substantially either. And unless you have a big groundswell in the South, which doesn't look like there's not that many indications saying that's going to happen.
But could you envision a scenario where the Democrats take Pennsylvania, Michigan, lose Wisconsin, but then maybe pick up like an Arizona?
No.
Maybe pick up a Florida. No, you think if Wisconsin goes the wrong way, then Florida's
especially with the convention being here, I think it does help a little bit here.
Yeah.
I actually think that it's pretty hard to imagine a scenario where we win Pennsylvania and Michigan without winning Wisconsin.
You think it's
I think if we lose Wisconsin, we're probably losing at least one of those other two too.
Yeah,
and I can't imagine
given the vote differential last time. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, maybe there's a route. Maybe Arizona really comes out and Florida does too, and then that makes it a moot point. But all of our recent experience, the only one where I really have any hope is Arizona.
North Carolina.
Yep.
Yeah,
that would be the one I would.
That would be the other one to watch.
Say.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've got a southern route to the White House, so it's Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Arizona, almost in reverse order of likelihood. There. Well, I actually Georgia's probably the least likely.
Yes.
Then maybe Florida, then North Carolina, then Arizona.
Yep.
And then you got the northern route, which is
Maine, New Hampshire.
Those I was taking as a given. So
the Trump campaign is saying they're going to take those.
I mean,
and Nevada, they're looking at Nevada too.
If we can't hold Colorado and Nevada, then we're in deep shit.
Then we're kind of fucked.
Yeah. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. I mean, that's pretty much the front line.
Yep.
I guess you could maybe lose one of those states and then
make
it up elsewhere far away because different dynamics are. But I don't think that's very likely, honestly.
Well, just because of how statistics works, right? And you look at the demographics of this state and how it's similar to those other places that we've named, and you figure if
you also look at recent trends,
if people in certain social classes and income levels, and if they're going to vote this way here, they're going to vote that way elsewhere.
Well, for whatever reason, the recent trends are not promising in Florida.
Yeah, just like they haven't been promising in Ohio.
They're not quite as bad because they tend to be very close, but they tend to be losing most close races in Florida. I suspect what it is that as diversified as the population appears to be, they still are attracting an inordinate number of snowbirds from states like Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania to live down there, and they tend to be the most conservative people.
Yeah,
which is probably what's keeping Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania in the game in the first place.
Sure,
we're losing population now. Well, we're losing the right wingers down in particular
to Phoenix and Orlando and Miami.
I mean, Arizona, the Martha McSally race would probably point in just the direction of Southwest would point me to thinking that is the most promising red to blue flip out there. I would say North Carolina, just because I think it's more permanently trending diverse, like with permanent residents, not just retirees or not just very recent immigrants. Well, it does have some reason, but I mean, it's less in flux, I guess. In Florida seems to be constantly in flux.
Yeah,
there's a wave of this group, there's a wave of that group. there's a lot of immigrants, but some of them are still Cubans who are.
I think you look at the type of economy that North Carolina has. It's a heavy financial sector.
It's a little like Virginia,
yeah.
which tends to push it a little bit more toward the center, almost blue, right? And so that would be the second one I would look at.
Yeah.
So it'd be Arizona and North Carolina. Beyond that, I'm not too optimistic with Florida.
Well, thank goodness that the House is Democratic, because think about the kinds of things that they want to do and the kinds of laws that would have been passed this past year going into next year. They would have, especially if the writings on the wall that Trump would lose the presidency, they would be ramming through all kinds of stuff.
Absolutely.
And potentially looking at ways to neuter the White House, just like they neutered Tony Evers when he came into the governorship.
Well, they may still do that, even.
Well, they won't be able to do that without a Republican House.
What are the scenarios where you think Trump tries to deny defeat?
This is something that has been talked about, and the whole idea that if Trump loses, does he go, or does he put up a fight? And obviously that comes down to the differential. If it's an election like at 2000. Where it's close and you can fight it in the courts, obviously he's going to do everything in his power. But if it's pretty convincing win and not really even
what
close,
if it's like 2012 was, say, for Romney?
I don't think he has a leg to stand on then.
It wasn't exactly a landslide, but it was fairly convincing.
Do you think he fights it then in that scenario? Because I don't know how he does.
Kerry Bush going the other way.
Well, he fought it
for
a night, then he conceded the next day.
Right, it was obvious. Right.
Yeah, I don't know how you fight that at that point. If you try to drag it out with that loss, if you're Trump, that may be the closest we ever come to a military coup in this country. If he literally will not give up power. Because the courts can rule a certain way, and he could just deny or not observe the court's ruling because he runs the executive branch, so he's in charge of executing the laws and decisions based on court rulings and what the legislature does. You may reach a point where the military has to get involved. I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty.
It's scary stuff. It's scary stuff, but hopefully it doesn't come to that. And that's why it's critical that we win convincingly in states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, maybe North Carolina, maybe Arizona.
All right. Because obviously the thing I wanted to point out too tonight was it's just newsflash, but it's a culture of lawlessness.
Yes,
in the White House.
This is what has been put into place.
It almost makes me think maybe we should just do impeachment just to show that we will enforce the laws.
I don't know that there's enough bandwidth.
Yeah.
To pull it off.
I understand, but if we don't do it, do we then encourage him to grandstand around the results of losing an election?
I think you probably continue to put the focus on subpoenas and trying to get the information, and if they're stonewalling you, you make that a political issue in the campaign.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, Brewers lost again.
Brewers lost, yeah.
Not exactly news.
The offense is anemic. Moustakas got hit on the hand today, so he's going to be out with a contusion probably day to day, it looks like. So probably Travis Shaw.
Meanwhile, we want Keston Hira up.
I think
you've got so many pieces of the lineup that can't hit 200.
I think Hira's going to be on a plane fairly quick in the next few days, and we'll see what happens with Shaw at third base. Maybe they send him down, or maybe they try sending Aguilar down, but they would have to put Aguilar on waivers if they sent him down, and so
Shaw and Aguilar look completely lost at the plate right now. They cannot be regular players on a
Aguilar
team.
Will get snapped up by somebody, given that he was an all-star last year. Some team's going to take a chance on him. He would be gone if they would try to send him to the minors, but maybe that's for the best. I don't know. But
it's sad to think that way.
It is.
Right now, the Brewers, I believe, have 2 starters hitting under 200. And in the last month, frankly, Arcia, Kane, and Braun haven't been much better.
No.
So there you go.
Yeah.
That's your problem. All right.
More to come.
Yep.
Forward.